Thank you so much for joining the Impact Effect today. We've got an amazing guest, Amanda Banks. She is throwing TedX Old Hickory, but we're going to talk a little bit about the reality of events, networking, and where the passion came for Amanda to do what she's doing and help the community. And I just wanted to remind everybody what Impact Effect is and what we're doing here. We're trying to influence your results by bringing amazing people who help the community and engage and provide some amazing opportunity and education.
We've been really blessed. So our speakers have been working for months to prepare their talks. We've been working for months. There's a bunch of different tracks when it comes to actually putting on an event, and you can appreciate that. And so I think it's one of those pinnacle moments where everybody finally gets together and you finally get to see the hard work that goes into everything. And all of us just want everybody to see the highest level of success that they could only dream of doing. But it's a matter of like making all the things align, and then also being open to constructive criticism and taking that information in and perfecting, maybe not perfecting because perfection doesn't exist, but really being able to communicate even more clearly than you thought you could on the beginning. So that was the process that I really enjoyed watching today, is like, these are elite leaders. They have spoken on stages, some of them all over the world, right?
Yep.
But they're open to feedback on how to perfect their message a little bit more clearer, or how to even convey the energy in the room a little bit different. And so seeing that whole experience is just such a beautiful thing to watch.
So sounds like there was some humbleness in what occurred today.
There has to be.
Yeah.
There has to be. Like, the reality is elite performers, and I'm going to go back to elite performers, like, we are always receiving coaching. We are always open to feedback. Like, we crave those types of things. And so the room was very open, like some good feedback, some not so good feedback, some you could do this a little bit better, or like just totally take that out. That's not even alignment. And I think that goes back to, coaching and being able to receive information and appreciate that information.
I think too, self-awareness, right?
Yeah.
Is you have to have self-awareness. Did that feel amazing? And even if it did feel amazing, are you just open to receive some of that feedback?
Yeah.
Have you ever experienced speakers that aren't open to that? Or if you're, paying them and they want to do it some certain way even, and that doesn't align with what you want to do it or you have agreed to?
Yeah. So the beautiful thing about TedX Old Hickory is we don't pay our speakers. It's all a fully volunteer-led effort. So really it's everybody just putting forth this energy and this effort towards a single goal. And so, you see that sometimes, but not really, because you weed through that very quickly. If somebody's not committed or not aligned, you find that information out pretty fast because they're not getting you the information on time. They're not following the process. And since there's no compensation tied to it,
so out of everybody that you said, yes, you're on this, everybody's gotten you things on time, everybody's...
Oh, of course not.
Okay.
Have
you kicked anybody off because they didn't align with what... Because
yes.
To me, these sound like red flags. I'm curious, did you pull the red flag?
Well, it's not necessarily pull the red flag. It's you're not prepared at this moment. Let's shift you to another event. Or, things come up in life, right?
Yeah.
Like... there's things in life, personal, both professional, like, are you aligned and ready at this moment? It's my responsibility as the organizer of this to just make sure everybody on that stage is prepared to the best of their ability.
Has anybody said yes, even though you thought they weren't ready? Like when you went to someone and said, hey, I don't think you're ready, based on you didn't submit this or do this, has anybody pushed back and said, no, I am ready? Has there been any tension? I'm curious because you do something very different than I do it.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of questions around it, because the way that I perceived it is, it sounds like they're humble. It sounds like they belong there. It sounds like they're elite. This is the right stage for them. But I find in my work, even when paying someone, that's not always true. And that's not always the case. So I'm curious to sound like, did you kick anybody off the panel that originally was supposed to be on it based on?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
Cool.
Like, you have to and it's not really kicking anybody off, right? It's like just being hyper aware of being the organizer and making sure that you stay true to the vision. Like, it's not easy, but you have to make adjustments. And whether that's moving somebody to a future event, which we intend to do, many of these in the future, but it's just part of the process, right? And I think that's a challenging thing as an organizer, is to dig deep and be like, okay, like, we've provided all the resource, but you can't do things. You can't make people do things. You can't make people submit things on time. And so if you get really the initial inkling, typically your intuition, I have found my intuition has been right, and to just kind of lean into that process a little bit more. I mean, do you see that? Do you see like you kind of have an initial intuition of like this person is going to be ready, or maybe needs a little bit more time? Like,
I'm struggling with it right now. I'm about to make a phone call right after we shoot this, and it's going to go left or right. And I think, I had a great conversation this morning with my friend Molly, and she's like, Jim, it's like rehab. If you force the person to go to rehab, do they really want to be there? Is it going to go well, and are they going to kick their habit? Yep. But if they want to go and they want to be there and they align with you, or they align with the process of rehab, they're going to go and they're going to get cleaned. And she was like, if you're seeing red flags and there's non-alignment, you need to have that open conversation, right? And the conversation was, well, this is what I would have charged you. This is what you're paying, and I disagree on all the contract terms. Well, the contract terms, I have grace, and there's negotiation, and that's fine. But because you've reduced your fee, which we agreed on, does that mean you have to have everything that you want, and that's the only way you're going to speak? And because if that's the relationship, there's tension. Mm-hmm. And you're not going to show up and be great, and I'm not going to promote you the best way because there's emotional tension. That's a very hard conversation for me to have. And I've been dreading it for a week, and it's time to have the conversation because I can't talk about identifying and stop avoiding when I myself am avoiding something right now.
It's hard.
How do I get on this podcast? How do I say it? I talked about avoidance literally last week. How can I go propel that and not do it myself? So I have to practice what I preach, and it's a tough conversation. It could go left or right.
I think that's all forms of leadership, though. Like stepping into some type of leadership role, whether that's organizing events, whether that's running a company, whatever it may be. I think that as an elite performer, or being around a lot of other elite performers, they make those decisions a lot quicker. And I think that the more you just exercise that muscle, the easier it becomes. But, stepping into an elite, an emerging role, like an emerging leader position, I mean, those are just things that are, one, not taught in school, but two, like that you just have to become more and more and more seasoned and comfortable in. And so I think regardless of organizing an event or running a company, that there's similar things to both of those.
I agree. I agree to the fact that those are similar, but I also disagree because I think they can be very separate. If you put me in my previous career, I'd make a decision without a flinch. Me negotiating $100,000 variance in a speaking fee is new to me. I'm a good negotiator. Ask all of my real estate clients, right? But that's new to me. So there's this level of, am I doing the right way? Am I being too harsh? Yeah. Should I disagree with the term? Should I agree? Right? So I'm trying to find that balance.
But growth is uncomfortable. So if I'm not making mistakes, or if I'm not, being late to a recording, I'm not pushing myself as a leader to continue learn and grow. And so in that specific case, you're exercising a new muscle, like you've never done this before, or you're humble and you're open to suggestions and you're leaning into that you're taking action, right? A lot of people won't even take action. And so that's an incredible thing. And you'll continue to learn and you'll continue to grow, as will I, because I'm okay with pushing that envelope a little bit.
You got to exercise that muscle.
And you've got to be uncomfortable. We all make mistakes. And that's the thing is that I'm really trying to lean into right now is I don't have all of the answers to everything. Organizing this event, I'm trying to put all the answers together, but I'm still learning. I'm going to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. But surrounding myself with people that will give me grace,
of course,
when those mistakes happen, is absolutely critical in that process.
So so let me ask you this. What's the hardest thing, in your opinion, to put on a TEDx conference or an event? What's the hardest thing so far in your experience?
So a lot of it has to do with education. So I'm no representative of TED or TEDx. I'm only TEDx Old Hickory. So organizing TEDx Old Hickory, which this is our first one. I was shocked to have conversations with people that had never heard of TED before or never heard of TEDx. So the biggest challenge is in areas that may not be aware, or where something seemingly doesn't belong, is just educating, is just being involved in the spaces where I can talk about this is what this has the potential to do for our community, which is really powerful. So that's been the biggest challenge, is overcoming the initial education piece with people that don't even necessarily know what this is.
That's so interesting, because I would assume a brand like that is known.
Yeah.
So to hear you say that it's not known by a lot of people is interesting, because to me, it's a massive brand that I would say 90% of my circle can identify what that means.
I mean, it's a big responsibility too. I think last I checked, and I could totally be wrong, don't quote me on these numbers, but it's like 38.5 million subscribers on their YouTube channel is TedX. So it's such an incredible opportunity. And what I'm finding is a lot of people they're like, oh, like maybe I saw that somewhere, but they don't necessarily know that it exists. Certain circles do, but a lot of people don't. So, that's been a really interesting experience for me, is to just have to go down the path of education and teaching and, basically evangelizing this message of like, what does this have the opportunity to do? And I'm curious from your perspective, because you're starting events out, like, are you kind of seeing the same thing too? Is like,
I would say that a majority of people that I would think see the value in what I do would come to this event won't be there. It's been very interesting.
Dive deeper into that. So
like people who I know on a personal level, so I know they're here and I know where they want to get, and there's a massive gap. I think that I made an assumption that they would want to take action to reduce that gap because of who they are and their personality, and they don't. They've got other priorities. So to me, it's just interesting that a lot of people, are successful, or they want to go to a certain area. They're not there. They know they're not there, but they don't want to take personal development and education to get there.
Why do you think that is?
So when I ask what the plan is, they don't have a plan, and they're okay with that. That to me was new to me. I thought a lot of these conversations would align in a way where it was like, I'd grab onto anything I can, or I'd validate anything, or I'd be open to a conversation. And I'm not talking like, hey, buy this ticket and come to this conference and do that, right? I'm just talking about organic conversation of this is what we got going on. I know that you're not where you want to be because you've told me, I think this could help. Let's talk through that. We have some of those conversations, and it's not a good opportunity, which is fine. But those people aren't saying my opportunity is not good and going to acquire another one. Those people aren't doing anything. And I think that, we're in a period of life and seasonality where, there's a lot of difficult decisions that have to happen. There's a lot of access to information, and people are ciphering and trying to figure out what the right decision is for them. Right. And my solution isn't for everybody.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying you're dumb because you don't see the value and you're dumb because you don't invest in what I'm doing. I'm saying you're dumb because you're not investing in yourself.
Yeah.
And that doesn't need to be through my platform, because these phone calls, these friends, even cold calls, like, I'm not the solution for everybody. I know that. And I don't want to be the solution for a certain amount of people. We're asking certain questions to qualify. So there will be people that want to join that we won't let, because I believe exclusivity and what we're trying to do and curating the room is important. But there's also people that just don't see value in professional and personal development. And as I dive more into the event side to help entrepreneurs and hit my goal and really push people to their superpowers and fulfillment, I am just in this category. Over the last year, I've realized that not a lot of people want it or will take action on it. So for me, that was eye-opening, and just part of an assumption I had that a lot of the people I know and a lot of people I don't know would engage in professional development to get to where they want to be. Not a lot of people want to do that. Or let me rephrase that. A lot less than what I thought.
I have found that a lot of people want the outcome but don't want to put in the necessary steps to get there. And another really interesting thing on my end, and I'm sure that, you may have experienced this as well, is like people say that they want to support, but then they don't necessarily support. And when I'm not talking about buying tickets either. I'm like, hey, just share a post, or there's a million things that somebody can do to support this mission or this vision that we're on. But the people that actually take action, it's few and far between. And that's been really, really shocking to me as well, is like, look, I'm providing you with this resource and this may not be the resource for you, but we've been connected forever. Like, would you be willing to just share this or help spread the message or share it with somebody that, you know, could find value? And I have found that that's kind of hard to come by at times, is people that will actually take action on your behalf to help support the mission that you're actually on. Have you seen that too?
I have, but I've also seen the opposite.
Same.
I've seen people go to war for me that I didn't even think cared about me. I've seen people refer, recommend, share, connect that I didn't even know they were following my path and my history and what I'm trying to do and aligned with it, right?
Yeah.
So to your point, I think this is just a life lesson in anything. It's hitting me a little bit harder than some other life lessons recently, but the life lesson out of all this is, I hate to break it to you, but the people you think that are going to support you aren't. And some of the people that you think don't even know what you're doing are right behind you, rooting, cheering the whole time. So it's just a reminder that our perception may not be reality, based on relationships, based on some people saying, yeah, I'm going to go run through walls for you. And then they don't. So I think it's just a reality check of like, this is why we need to diversify. This is why we need to tighten and build our tribe, because the realization I've had through this process is my tribe isn't my tribe. I need to really pencil down and see what is. And again, this isn't me saying, dude, buy a ticket and go find 5 people to buy a ticket. That's not how I talk, because this isn't about buying tickets. This is about getting the right information to people who need it and provide an opportunity to help them, provide an opportunity to watch them grow and be there to ride the waves of entrepreneurship, to be down in the shit with them and the journey, and then rise up to the mountaintop and celebrate, right? Like, that's my whole thing. Is we're not going to leave you stranded, and we're going to be there when things are great to celebrate and cheer you on. And that's the community I want to build. And I don't think we have that here in Nashville, because I would love to be in it and I haven't been able to find it. So I'm going to create it.
Yeah, there's a lot of really just incredible people. And one of the things that I've been like super keenly like just aware of is it's very simple things. Like, I've had people reach out to me and be like, hey, look, like, what you're doing is really, really amazing. Just keep going. Just keep going. And so it's things like that you just know, hey, these people are like supporting me. And even though they may not be here present with me, like, it's something that simple, like text message, hey, I hope you're having a great day. Really appreciate what you're doing. Or, hey, like, what you put out there doesn't really resonate. Like, what the heck is going on? Are you okay? So that's been a really interesting process, is to just kind of watch, like, to your point, like, people that I've been supporting for years and years and years, like, hey, like, what's going on? Like, share a post or talk. But Nashville's a really interesting community. I'm kind of in a lot of different communities within Nashville as far as the business community. And there's so many incredible, beautiful people. And I'm grateful to have the support of some of these people and to go through that process with them. So I hear what you're saying. You
had mentioned that TedX Old Hickory is going to be amazing for the community. Tell me a little bit about what you see happening from this. Yeah, so TedX events are independently organized, community-based events. So it's basically somebody that's crazy enough that says, hey, I think that we could host a TEDx event in our specific community and pull this thing off. So I submitted for the license the tail end of last year. I was granted that license, and immediately I casted a net out through social and was like, hey, I've got this license. We're going to host an event in Old Hickory, Tennessee. So back to the earlier point, it's all community led. So people like Darren Jernigan, who's our House of Representatives members on my committee. So it's all sorts of people from the community or surrounding communities that basically come together to support it. But then it's also specifically designed to bringing really cool ideas to the community to help elevate the community in some way, shape, or form. So our theme is innovation for social change. So every single one of our speakers will be talking on a tough topic as it relates to
some social change issue, which is really powerful, especially in our community. So, there's a lot of good that can happen just by spreading ideas, just by having a conversation. And that's what it's specifically designed to do.
I love it. I love it.
What about you? So what do you with impact events, how do you envision all of that taking form? And what are you looking to bring to the community through that?
Yeah, great question. I think for me, where I started the vision and where I am just a short 5 months into it has completely changed. The opportunity to have a one-day live event conference is absolutely amazing, but that's selling myself short. I can do more, I can have larger impact, and I can help more people. So I think where it started and where it morphed into is this is a 6-month program. We have a 1 live day conference. That's a ton of information, ton of speakers, and it's really just the kickoff. Because the reality of what I've experienced and through surveys and talking through multiple people in our community is they go to a conference, they get really motivated, really inspired, and it lasts about 10 to 12 days. And then they get bogged down in their business. There's no accountability. There's no follow-up. The follow-up is buy a ticket at half off for next year's conference. And that's it. And then you get on the email chain and they sell you a bunch of other things, memberships, masterminds, and other events. Let's remove that bullshit and let's give you everything on the front end and jam pack it and overvalue it and see if it makes sense and if you align with it. So we do the 1-day conference for the kickoff, and we allow you to submit 3 of your action goals and 3 things you're going to remove, because I don't believe in just jamming and stacking. If you're going to engage in 3 powerful things to take action with and change, I believe that you need to let go of 3 things, because we're already in a world of too much stacking and overcommittal opportunities, right? We all do it. There's a reality here. It's our community. We can all agree with that. So you're signing up for a 6-month program. 1-day conference is the kickoff. You submit your action items where there's communication tools like a private Facebook group and Slack. And we bring you back 2 months later for another event where you can ask live questions to the speaker, where it's like, hey, you told me to utilize this way of communication to close more sales. I used it in my specific business. This is the question I was asking, but I'm not converting. Well, you can actually ask that specific question to a master of communication who talks about communication and sales all day, every day.
Yeah.
And I know they're a master because in our conversation, they did it to me and I was blown away. And the referral of the speaker did it to them, right? So I know it works. But the reality of what someone says and how you apply it, there's potential gap there. So how do we remove that gap? By you going to hit those roadblocks and coming with detailed, specific questions for the speakers in those following 4 live events. Yep. With the accountability, with building the tribe, because we are curating the room. There's not going to be people in the room where they say, oh, my company paid for it, I have to be here. They don't even get to come in because we're having them commit up front to these things that we're trying to do, because we need the synergy and we need people to align. And what we need most in our life is others and humans. So I want to build a tribe that's going to be with you and speakers that are going to be with you along the ride. And that ride's 6 months. So for me, it started with the 1-day conference and I was like, that's just not enough. And it's not enough for me. So how can I go on camera and put together this thing and risk everything I have for my vision to help entrepreneurs and business owners when I don't believe it? So I had to believe it. And I didn't believe it. So I kept adding and building until I actually felt confident that this is going to change lives and I would sign up for it. And it's 4 times below what I would pay for it. So like this year, I'm talking to people and they're like, oh, it's a tough year. And I'm like, guys, this is going to 4X in cost next year. So like get in and just get a taste of it, right? Entry level is $500. If you just came to the events, That's $100 to come to an event to see a group of speakers who have over 3.5 million followers online, that have a massive presence, have built and sold 7 and 8 figure businesses. So you've got 5 opportunities to engage just with that speaker for $500, let alone the accountability, let alone the tribe and the relationships that are going to be built in the room. We've got content you can shoot and create at the event. We're doing podcasts. Like, there's so many things that I want to jam pack with value, because this is for the person that's thinking about giving up. This is for the person that's thinking about selling the dream they've built for the last 15 years because they can't get to 10 million and they're stuck at 8 for the last 5. This is for the person that's thinking about going back to corporate and selling their soul, even though that's not where they want to be. They never wanted to be there, and they damn well know it. Right? This is to help the people that need help, not to sell a fucking ticket and not to make money.
So what's the why behind that? So, because it's really deep. Like, a lot of the reasons why we are doing what we're doing.
Because I've wanted to quit in every job, every company that I've started, and I've gotten to the darkest of days.
Yep.
And I've had the highest of highs. I've made a lot of money. I've made no money. I've made decisions that were awful for my business. I made decisions that are great for my business. I've ridden the roller coaster of emotions over and over and over again. And I just want to bring raw, real reality and vulnerability to that, instead of what these gurus put on social. That's bullshit. Because guess what, guys? I've met them.
Same.
I've met them all.
Same.
And they're completely different behind closed doors than they are on camera. And that's fine. That's their thing. But I'm trying to break the norm. I'm trying to be different. I'm trying to be unique, because I'm trying to be real and raw. And I'm not going to let money take away from that integrity. I'm not going to let, my values be erupted and break. And I care. And that's the reality of it. I'm willing to put everything on the line to help others. And I have to have faith that I'll make the right decisions, and there's the right people around me that will help in that process. And we're not even at the conference yet, and I've already felt that. Well,
and it takes a lot of courage. Like, if you're tuning in, like, this takes a lot of courage to just dive deeper. Like, you've said 2 things that really resonated. One is curating the space. So most people think of TED or TEDx as these huge events. And in some cases, that is absolutely the case, right? But TEDx Old Hickory, my license is only for 100 people or less.
Well, I was that person that made that assumption when we started talking, and you were like, and then you were talking, and I was like, yeah, I'll sponsor. And like, you were like, there's only 100, and I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
So I had a perception that was different.
It is. And it's specifically designed to help create meaningful, impactful relationships. So everything that I am doing, and that our team is doing, and that our speakers are doing, is how can we really, really, really move the needle in people's lives just through relationship and community. Yeah. And so, we have intentional breaks where there's hour sessions, where people are going to be able to get to network and then come and listen to the speakers give their idea. But really, it's specifically built around how can you build meaningful, impactful relationships with community leaders, but also with everybody else in the room. So, when I think of conference, or I think of, a big event, there's a lot of perceptions that go with that, right? But it's curating this very unique environment or experience with people that, 1, truly want to be there, but 2, that are looking to make an impact in their lives, but also in other people's lives as well. And so it's just such this beautiful, I'm so excited. Like, I hope you can kind of feel that. I'm super excited for your event too, but I'm just excited to see what actually happens in that room, because for me, every single growth moment that I've had, or even every single opportunity that I have had, it's been given through a relationship. It's been given through somebody that says, hey, I see the potential in you, and I want to invite you in and provide you with a space. And so for me, I'm thinking, okay, well, how can we curate what's been given to me with everybody that steps foot in this building?
I love it.
And I'm sure you're super aligned with that, meaning like you want every single person that shows up to your event to leave not just with hey, I'm going to be motivated and fired up and inspired, because really that does very little for a long-term perspective.
There's no longevity.
There's no longevity. So it's how can you actually just use it as a way to plant a seed, or to spark the conversation, or even spark an idea in somebody's head? And how can you actually plant that so that they have the ability to grow it over time and have the accurate resources to do that?
Totally.
So
there's a science to throwing an event the right way. That's just reality, right? And at the end of the day, this is a gathering. And I think where a lot of people go wrong, and I teach this in a webinar, is you need to understand the purpose of the gathering. What do you want to accomplish? And what are people looking for, need, and are seeking, right? And if you can marry those two things and do it in a unique way, put a lot of effort into it, refine it and fine tune it, then the experience is going to be what you want for an outcome. But a gathering takes a lot of thought process and planning. And it's not just throw this vendor in and do that. Like, you got to talk about flow. You got to be really fine tuned on timing. You've got to understand what a speaker says, what emotion's going to bring, and then how to transition it, especially if one speaker has a different emotion attached to what the prior speaker had. And how do you motivate and get people up, right? I've watched people speak and end a speech with people crying, and then the next speaker is the complete opposite emotion. How do you make that transition? And if you don't know what the speaker's going to say or the emotion they're going to leave, then you're not going to know how to transition it. So that's just a small example of what the thought process that goes into events to make them wildly successful, and to have that emotional heart tie into a specific emotional action. And that is really an art and a science. And like, the more that I dive into gatherings and logistics and look at some of the best events, and by the way, guys, the best events aren't always Tony Robbins, 10,000 people in a room.
They're really not. They're 8 to 10 person gatherings where you literally leave with like the most meaningful conversations, and not just business cards. Like, I hate passing out business cards because to me, that's so informal. It's how can we have a conversation where I don't need your business card when I leave this conversation, because I know more about you.
You don't give a business card to a friend. It's a very simple concept. And if you're going to do business with someone, you probably want to know enough about them to potentially make the decision if you'd be a friend of theirs or not.
Yep.
And if we can share things and core values and real conversations and where you're going, how you're getting there, what your dreams are, maybe some struggles you face, then we're starting to have a friend conversation. And then that exchange should be, well, what's your number, Amanda? Right? And if you don't feel the alignment, you may give me a business card, but at least I'm trying to build that relationship to where you feel comfortable and I feel comfortable. If we exchange numbers, and sometimes this gets weird if it's male or female, right? Because some people misread the interaction. But the reality most likely is if we exchange numbers, then we're probably comfortable to meet up in person, have a coffee meeting, to jump on a Zoom, to really dive in based on our initial conversation. And I think the business card almost kills the emotional connection, because a lot of people within the first 2 seconds, let me give you my card. And it's like, dude, I don't even know you. I don't even know if I want your card. I don't even know if I want to have another conversation with you. And it's to me, like, when you really get down into the science of it, it's almost rude, but it's normalized and accepted in our communities. Yeah. It's rude for me to make the assumption that you're going to call me because I want you to call me. You don't do that in dating. You don't do that in friends. So why would we do it in business? Because you think your brand, which I know nothing about, and your company, which I know nothing about, deserves the opportunity to where you're going to need me for something or my services.
Yep.
But I don't even know you, let alone what you need, let alone if I can even help you. And I think that's just the number one problem in sales.
Yep. But
honestly, a relationship is selling too. So it bleeds into a relationship. It's the number one problem in relationships. Is like, and I'll give the example of real estate because it's very easy. The person who tells you should buy, the market's perfect right now, it's crazy not to, right? They're just reading a piece of paper that aligns with anybody in the world, not just you. So like, I should ask you questions like, why do you want to move? What's your timeline? Is there anything coming up in your life in the immediate 1 year or 3 years? Do you have kids now? Are you going to have kids? Right? Like, let's learn about you and your motives and your plan.
But it has to come from a place of like pure, being genuine about it.
It has to
be. You can smell that a mile away. I can literally smell if somebody just wants a transactional relationship, and that's okay. But that's not how I operate. Yep. So like, understanding and knowing, hey, I'm driven from a relationship perspective. Like, let's be patient and like figure out, okay, like we all have business needs.
Yes.
We all need friends. We all need resources, regardless of how successful you are.
But if I can smell that you're just in it for the business, then I won't give you the business. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. And if you're coming to my events, a majority of the people understand how to do this the right way. So if you're coming and you are the business card person, you're not going to succeed regardless, because the people who are coming to my events know how to do this the right way and know how to do it very well. So there's going to be a significant gap. And I watch it at my events. Yeah. I watch the business card come out, and I watch the disengagement, and then I turn around and I watch that person go to the bar and get a drink. Yep. And I know that person, and I know that they're not thirsty. It's an excuse. And I'll be the first to tell you honestly, if we're engaging in a conversation and I say I have to use the bathroom, you've probably not made a deep connection, because that's my excuse. Honestly, I got to use the bathroom, and you'll see me walk to the next person. I
have a really good strategy with this. So like, I think it's really important to not just know how to get into a conversation, but also how to get out. So when I go to networking events where I'm trying to make true connections, I usually bring somebody else with me, but that's because I want to insert them into the conversation if I'm disengaged, so that I can move on. And that's just the reality. Like, you know, very quickly, hey, I'm really curious about this person. Like, I want to dive deeper into conversation. I want to get to know them better. I maybe want to have some type of business relationship or even just a friendship.
Totally.
But being able to exit the conversation, there's also a strategy to that. And so, you know, I encourage anybody that's listening in, like, think about not just how to engage into conversation, but also like how to move out of conversation that may not be in alignment with the things that you're looking to do. Like, we all get in those conversations, and people want to talk forever about just surface level stuff. And that's okay for some people. But being able to exit the conversation is also a superpower, in my opinion.
I think for me, I think back of like the conversations I want to exit, and then I go, okay, what don't I like? And then how can I not do that?
Yep.
Because the reality of it is I need to know what I don't like, so I don't portray that to others.
Yeah.
And in hopes that would work.
I think that comes down to like truly caring, right? Like, I truly care about building meaningful relationships. And like, the reality is I can't please everybody. Like, I can't serve everybody. Like, True. We all have limited time. We have families that we're tending to. We have businesses that we're tending to. Like, the reality is I want to be just as respectful for your time as I'm going to be respectful for my time, because it's not an endless supply, right? And so just understanding how to find people that you're in alignment with, going to these types of events where, from the organizer or the leader's perspective, where they're setting that intention straight out of the gate, like, you know, showing up in a space that this is a great opportunity to meet really cool people. Yes, you may have shown up to a million other events previously and maybe not had the same experience, but I just encourage you to give it a shot, like, because people that are leading or organizing with that type of intention, that's where powerful relationships do happen.
I agree.
And I've firsthand seen it. Like, I've made some of my most beautiful connections through going to an event that's led by somebody that has an intention like what you and I both share in.
I agree. It's powerful.
It's super powerful. And I think so many people have been burned, though, because when you hear event or conference or whatever, the experience is surface level. Like, you go in and you're just there to spend money, and then you get maybe a little bit of something out of it. And that's happened for so long. I just think that the event space or curating experience spaces, it's just different now. It's moving into a little bit of a different vibe. And, you know,
you're going to see the separation. I mean, I was talking to someone about this the other day, and there's like, I'm having an event tomorrow, and there's 9 other events similar to mine. And they're like, oh, the event space is saturated. What are you going to do? I'm like, I want to keep doing the same thing I've always been doing. Not compare myself to others and be unique. That's literally it. And at the end of the day, yes, has that hurt our industry? 100%. Right? I went to an event last week, and there was 4 people there. No one introduced themselves. It was super awkward, and the material sucked. But that isn't going to stop me from going to events. It's going to push me to understand who's going to be there, ask more questions, and really validate. And the name was reputable. It was a reputable name. but sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. And I think you have to have the power to identify, assess, and remove. I'm not going to sit there for 3 hours knowing that this is not beneficial to me. And it's not because I have an ego. It's not because I think I throw better events. There's none of that. It's just the reality of, this is time away from my wife and my daughter. And am I acquiring information, knowledge, or relationships that are meaningful and that are geared towards my number one goal?
Yeah.
And the answer was no in any of those. So I got up and I left. And I don't think that's not my ego. That's just me assessing a situation of value. And that wasn't valuable. And I think people will come to my events and think they're not valuable and do the same shit. And I'm okay with that because it's not for everybody. And I can't appease the world. I can only appease the people that I hope to appease. And if not, that's okay.
I think it comes down to the why. Like, I love always asking, like, what is the purpose here? Like, why am I doing this? And always staying in alignment with that. So for me, it's just a platform.
Yep.
So I dive into events, education, and experiences. Why? Because it provides a platform for thought leaders to help express their messages. Well, why is that? Well, because there's a lot of really amazing, incredible people that may not be known because they're not the loudest, right? But that their messages matter, and that could impact the life of just one person listening into that. So I always go down to the why rabbit hole, is like, okay, why would I do this? And I was all over the place. Like, I live in squirrel syndrome to some degree of like, oh my gosh, this is a cool opportunity. Oh, I should dive into here. Or I should dive into this. And when I started thinking through why this platform, and it dawned on me, I'm like, it's a platform. Events are a platform. It's a platform for you. Like, we're curating spaces that help amplify voices. And whether that's you're attending in the room or you're on the stage speaking, it's just a platform. It's a platform for connection. And if done right, it can literally be basically a pathway to build a relationship that can ultimately change your life.
Yeah.
And I've seen it firsthand. I've been in those spaces. I've met people that have literally changed my life.
Yeah, same.
And so for me, it's not about the event. It's not about the experience. It's not about even the education that I help people build. It's more, how do I create this platform so that your message is brought to the world in a true, authentic way, to where people that need that message can find you.
Yep.
And that's all it's about. So like, what's your why? Like, what's the deep rooted why on why you're doing this? Because it's not easy. Like, this is hard. At times, this sucks. Like, not getting buy-in, or like messing up deadlines, or like, there's all of these things that go into it. So like, what's the why? Like, what holds you there to where it's like, this is why I'm doing this?
Well, I think you can change. And I think you can change your perspective and mindset. You just don't have the access to the right information. So similar to you, it's a platform for me, you know, and allowing me to build that platform allows me access to obtain information to then reshare it with others. So at the end of the day, how can I help people? I need to reach more people, and this platform allows me to do that. And then I can curate the experience because I care, because I've gone to 100 freaking conferences and I've watched ones that work great and I've watched ones that don't. So I'm just trying to bring my experience in hopes that it's going to help and change others. Because for me, I did make a major change in my life, and it happened based on what I learned at a conference with support of others. I started thinking bigger, started putting myself in rooms with people that pushed me to think bigger and help me and collaborate with me. So, I mean, for me specifically, getting in the room has opened up massive opportunities, and not only changed my business, changed my mindset, changed my relationships, changed on how I'm going to parent my child, how I communicate with my wife. You know, almost everything has changed in my life, and it started by going to these certain events. And for a while, I was pissed off at events. I thought they all sucked. I thought they were all bullshit, but I just didn't find the right one. And, you know, you were saying like asking those questions and understanding the why, that's the biggest piece. Is I would go to this event because this big guru or this big person, and great, they spoke, but everything else was garbage and the people in the room were trash. It's not worth what I paid, right? So I got disgruntled. I don't want to do that, and I want to change the norm. If you're going to pay money, like, there needs to be 25x value. And that's my goal, is how can I do that? And how can I hold myself accountable to deliver on that? And that's why I'm like building this thing out. And when I started with like, it was a 1-day live conference that turned into a 6-month program, because I don't think you can change in 1 day. And once I attacked that reality is when I made the decision to grow it and make it a little bit bigger. Now I think you can understand the thought or where you want to go and reframe or redirect where you want to be, but you need help along the way, because it's really hard. It's really hard to be this and immediately tomorrow start making every change to not be that, or to be something you want to be over here. So that's why I want to do it. I want to give people courage. And honestly, I've talked to a lot of people prior to making this decision. I was one of them. Like, people need this. There's a massive gap between where they thought they would be and where they're at today. And people need help to get there, because I believe they can get there. They just need a little tweak, a little bit of information, one relationship. Because at the end of the day, like, I stress out all the time, and the only thing that gets me through that is a phone call. Right here today, was just talking to Eugene and Heather about a situation, and they literally took my stress level down to here. And it was a 35-second conversation. Like, how can I do that and help and provide the resources and just have engagement? I mean, it's the same way speaking on stage, except I can now curate my event and put the heart behind it for the outcome I want. I can only do that in 30 or 45 minutes if I'm speaking, which is very powerful, but I can't curate 100% of it.
You know, it's really interesting. And this comes back to this is the selfish part of me, is like, I curate the spaces that I need the most. And that was a really hard thing for me to process. But, you know, if anybody that's tuning in that is not helping curate small group outings, it is a super powerful, very beautiful thing that you can do for people. And I recently hosted one that I think was 10 people, and we were all from different backgrounds, you know, former professional athlete, an entrepreneur, and real estate leader. So we all came to dinner.
Yep.
To sit down over dinner. And what I realized in that moment was I'm curating spaces that I actually needed.
I think I said it to you when we spoke last week. I was like, I needed to hear this panel just as much as everybody that was in front of us. And I needed to rewatch the video and remind myself of some things that I said and I preached upon others. And you're 100% right. I mean, at the end of the day, we're human too.
We've
got bad days too.
Well, and I think about, I grew up in a super small town, super, super, super small town. And I think about just the opportunities that I've had access to, and it's always through people. It's through people that I meet, either through intentional networking, people that I've reached out to just be like, hey, I really appreciate the work that you're doing, would love to be in your inner circle. Or it's showing up to an event and being very purposeful with how I engage in that space. And so, you know, a lot of people, if you're tuning in and you're not familiar with TED events, they're all different. That's the beautiful part about a TEDx curated event, is it's independently organized, which means it's totally different than the other ones. You know, so it's all about innovation and ideas and exchange, but it's also about the people in the room.
Yeah.
And making sure to highlight that and to learn and grow with people. And quite frankly, it's a space that I need. And I'm excited you're going to be there. You're supporting it. I'm excited for who I get to connect you to.
I'm excited just to be in the room. I mean, for me, you know, when we were talking about sponsorship and all that, I'm like, this is a cause I want to get behind. Is now the best time to sponsor something for Jim Morris? No. But my heart's in it. I know you. I support you. I know you're going to make it great. I know you curated it. I know you put your heart into this thing. I want to help, and I want to be part of that, you know? And if I can be the little sliver where a little bit of cash has helped curate the room or do something amazing, and that causes some change, then this is I'd do it for 5x what I gave you if I had the money.
Well, and
right?
it's not about the money.
I believe in the cause. I believe in the community. I believe in what you do, and I want to support that.
Yeah.
You know?
And you know, and this is coming from the organizer side of things and the person that's helping curate and put everything together, including the operational side of things. I literally cried when I opened up my PayPal account, was Jim's supporting this. And, you know, the production company that's doing this is behind it. the reality
Mocha
is
Studios. Mocha Studios.
Mocha Studios. Like if you're leaning into
It's Mocha.
Why did you lead me there?
Because they're laughing behind the camera.
Why did you do that to me?
I've mispronounced their company for the last year. And
Oh
like
my
last week,
gosh.
they're like, you said it wrong. And I'm like, yo, you should have told me the whole time.
Yeah, you called me out like at the like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad. But the reality is like it's gonna go towards really good things. Like we're not in it to make money. Like to anybody listening, a TEDx event, no money, no paid speakers. It's really about curating the space. And our team has just been filled with like so much gratitude, and it's amazing at all of the things that are happening. So like I'm the world's worst at this, and if you're tuning in and you're an elite performer, like hear me out. You look at where you're at right now and you don't realize all the steps that you've made along the way. If you're listening, take a moment, take a deep breath, and think about all of the crap that you've been through day in and day out and where you're at today because of that.
It's huge.
I am super gritty, but I'm terrible about taking a step back and thinking about how much progress we've made.
Yep. You got to live in the moments sometimes. It's hard.
Sometimes you do. And like
It's hard.
when there's so many different parts and pieces, sponsorships and relationships and all these different things, it's hard to just breathe. I'll breathe after August the 26th, maybe. But like, do you see that too, where you get so fixated on where you're at in the moment, but you don't take a step back and think through, holy cow, where did I come from?
Yeah, 100%. And I think for me, it's always in comparison to someone else. And I have to remind myself every single day, dude, you're running your own race at your own pace. And look what you've accomplished so far. I mean, my reflection yesterday was my anniversary. I've been married to my wife for 1 year. And like the reality behind what I've accomplished since this time last year is astronomical. Like it's so crazy, because when I put it into perspective, and like Caitlin was like, it's been X days since I've known you existed as a human, and it's been right. And like that was her post, and I was like, man, she took the freaking effort to really go count those days. Like just that alone was a special moment.
It's meaningful.
But the reality behind it is like, holy shit. Like I've literally changed my entire life around. And like, that's the root cause of doing this conference, is like, you just need access to some information and some people that will support you and lift you up when you're having a bad day and celebrate you when you're on top. That's really all you need in life. And because the skills are there, the access to the information is there. It's the people, the relationship, and just you showing up and doing it and creating a goal, knowing where you're going and defining how you're going to get there. And if you don't hit the timelines or the things you thought you'd achieve, like you just got to get back up and keep pushing. But like just looking at that and then taking it from like last time, I didn't even think about having a conference last year at this time. It wasn't even a thought. I knew I wanted to help people. I knew entrepreneurship was where I was at. I got a little distracted in real estate and the whole sales, right? I love real estate. I'm good at it. I just wasn't doing it the way that it fulfills my heart, right? So I made that change and, building out this program and getting around certain people. And it's like I was thinking about this literally this morning in the shower. Dan Fleshman, I met last week at a conference. Had a great conversation with him. I remember when I first was on Instagram, I deleted Instagram because I was sick of looking at all the stuff he had that I would never have. And then now fast forward, I'm in the room having a conversation with him about my conference and what I'm doing to help and getting his advice. And I didn't even think I would ever come close to even meeting him, let alone having a conversation with him about Jim Morris. And like that right there just shows that you have to define a goal and you have to take action and just go work towards it, and you can do it.
And the people,
and we lose this, right?
Yeah.
I remember my mom telling me, like, you can do anything you want if you set your mind to it. And then you turn 18 and it's like that doesn't exist, even though she's been telling me my whole life. And then you start to implement it and do it. And in 10 months, a year, this is what happens. Like, it's crazy. How can I get that message to everybody? How can I give them the access to the information? How can I put them in the right rooms to build the relationships? And that's the why.
And there's a lot of noise on social media. So I'm on down this rabbit hole right now of like, there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of people that are flaunting planes and like all of this stuff, right? And sometimes it discourages like people that are starting out in their journey, or even maybe you've just thought of a goal that they're wanting to achieve. It discourages them. Don't let that discourage you. Don't compare yourself against that.
Yep.
Continue to, I call it, place one foot and put it in front of the other. That's all you can do.
I remember you saying that when we spoke together.
And you know, if you consistently do that, you know, I was a gymnast, so let's take it to sports, right? So in gymnastics, you're never going to do a double back until you hit a cartwheel first, and then maybe a back handspring, and then maybe you take that up onto a balance beam. It's a progression. You can't go from point A to point B without putting in the energy and the effort, regardless of how smart, how talented, how good or skilled you are. Like, you have to put in that work. I've been around a ton of successful people, whether it's gold medal athletes, billionaires, entrepreneurs, doesn't matter. Every single one of them put one foot in front of the other, and they react to failure quicker.
Yep.
And that's it. You have to take action. You have to keep taking those steps and reflect every once in a while on how far you've come. I'm very bad at that. I'm getting a lot better. But you have to reflect of how far you've come and never compare yourself. Maybe use that as motivation and fuel, however you're motivated, but never compare yourself against what you're seeing, social, whatever it may be, because quite frankly, it's not reality.
It's not real. I mean, I can tell you that firsthand. I've been in the rooms. I've had the conversations. It's almost literally someone telling them what to say, and that's the video. So, well, thank you for spending some time today. I appreciate it. It's been an amazing conversation.
Thanks,
I feel like you've given me a lot of energy just through this conversation, and I know you're throwing a massive event, and we've been talking offline and kind of going through the wins and some of the losses, and you know, I just want to applaud you for doing what you're doing, you know. And you know, TEDx isn't just like a go throw this. There's a lot of things and rules and, you know, hoops to jump through. So someone who's navigating that path for the right reasons, I just applaud you. So thanks for spending some time today and sharing some of that info.
No, thanks for having me. And I applaud you too. Like, super courageous in some of the things that you're doing, right? Expanding the vision. It takes courage to say, you know what, this isn't, you know, exactly where I want it to be, and expanding that vision and just spearheading that effort. You know, it takes courage to do these things. And I'm excited to see what you come up with and all of your dreams turn into reality at this event. So I'm excited to be there, and I'm excited to just sharing continuous conversation. I'm cheering you on.
Thank you.
Super fan. It's going to be awesome.
Appreciate you.
You too, friend.
Boom. Look at that.